Real-world computer programming for kids of all ages. Step 54. Dipping a toe into web technology, Part 1, HTML. I don't know about you all, or as they say in the South, y'all, but I'm pretty pumped about this next phase, this next leg in our journey on web technologies. To set the stage, I will give you a brief rundown on what we are going to cover, first in this leg of the journey and then in this step in particular. The big picture. We will start off with the triad of web technologies known as HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Following that, we will make use of a framework called Bootstrap, which helps us build good-looking and adaptable websites, meaning they adapt to the size of your screen so that your work looks good, or at least not terrible, no matter how small or large the screen is. Following that introduction to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, we will create an actual website using, along with those technologies just mentioned, Microsoft Visual Studio and its .NET API framework. This web app that we create will be one of interest to a wide variety of people. The purpose behind it is threefold. 1, to have fun building something cool. 2, to build something others will benefit from and find useful. And 3, to possibly make some money, but without visitors to the site having to pay a dime for the privilege. So, it sounds impossible, perhaps, but you will see how that can be done, and is done all the time, in fact. Not literally all the time, but you know. The small picture. As for today, or this step, we will begin with the basics. The foundation of what you see on a web page is a conjunction of 3 technologies working together, namely the aforementioned HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Entire books have been written on each of them, and offshoots of them, and even subsets of them, so our coverage will be the Cliff's Notes version to be sure, but enough to introduce them, what they are, and how they work. And when you get them to work together, it's almost like the proverbial marriage made in heaven. Without further ado, or adon't, we will introduce the first in that terrific triad, which will take up the rest of this step. HTML. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Yeah. What? Enough of the history and theory. Let's get into what it actually looks like and does. The best way to do that is to write some and see how it is rendered. Note: rendered in this context simply means converted from the markup language to something that visibly displays on a web page. The easiest and slickest way to do this is to use one of the online sites that turns HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that you enter and renders it on part of the page to you. As you change things and then rerun it, you'll see how your changes have affected things in an output or results window. There are a few good sites that allow you to experiment with these technologies. To name just a couple, there are CodePen and JSFiddle. I have used JSFiddle quite a bit in the past, so we'll show that to you. Go to jsfiddle.net and you'll see something like this. The screenshot shows what you see when you go to that page. Note how the bulk of the screen is segmented into 4 panes. 3 of them represent the 3 technologies that cooperate to present a visual front end to the user: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The 4th pane is where the results of what you have written are rendered. For now, in this step, we will just show you some basic HTML. In the next step, we will add CSS, and thereafter, finally, JavaScript. For starters, we will add the minimal amount of HTML. Enter this into the HTML quadrant, the northwest corner of the 4 panes. and it shows 6 lines of HTML. Note, do you remember that in C# the exclamation point symbol means not? That is not the case here. That first line, left angle bracket, exclamation point, doc type, HTML, right angle bracket, is simply saying, hey, this is an HTML document. So speaking in C#, we could say in HTML, the exclamation point symbol is exclamation point, or in HTML, the exclamation point symbol is not. After you hit the run button in the upper left, just to the right of the image of the cloud with an infinity symbol inside of it, you should then see this. And it shows a screenshot of what you will then see. So it took all that HTML, 6 lines, to get 1 line in return. Seems like the power of HTML is just a tempest in a teapot. What's the big deal? What's so great about HTML if you have to write 6 lines for it to produce 1 measly line? You'll see. Let's dissect the HTML. You see that it starts off declaring itself. The doc-type HTML part is telling the world that HTML is to follow and so treat it accordingly. Then notice that each element that follows starts with a begin tag and ends with an end tag later on. For example, there is this, and it shows the 2 HTML tags, and also this, and it shows the 2 body tags. What HTML and body mean, respectively, is that the HTML starts here and the body starts here. On the other hand, but similarly, /HTML and /body mean, respectively, the HTML ends here and the body ends here. The / indicates that this is the end of something that was started earlier. The only other part of the HTML we added is this line, and it's a P tag followed at the end of the line with a /P tag with some text inside of it. The P is short for paragraph. In this case, the begin, left angle bracket, P, lowercase, right angle bracket, and the end, left angle bracket, / lowercase p, right angle bracket, are on the same line. In fact, as in other programming languages, the neat formatting is for the benefit of humans. This, and it shows the HTML again, 6 lines, is easier for us humans to understand than this, and then it shows all those 6 lines on 1 line jammed together. But to the computer, it makes no difference. They are identical from its perspective. It cares not a whit for beauty and visual symmetry. Those elements we've seen so far, HTML, body, and P, are called tags. Whatever is between the beginning tag and the ending tag, which starts with a / again, belongs to that tag. So in our markup, and it shows the whole 6 lines again, this is all HTML, and it shows what's between the 2 HTML tags, the beginning and the end tag. So there's 3 lines. That's all HTML, because all of that is between the HTML start tag and the HTML end tag. And this, and it shows that line with the P symbol again, is both HTML and part of the body, because it's between both of them. So far, so good, but kind of bland, right? We will now begin to add a little more interest to our HTML by trying out some other tags. Let's try the various heading tags, which display text in differing sizes and styles. Change the HTML to this, and it shows the same HTML as before, but with 6 additional lines, from an H1 tag down to an H6 tag, with text in each one. This is what you get now, and it shows a screenshot of what is rendered. Now try the M tag, EM that is, which is short for emphasis, and which we would normally refer to as italicize. And it gives an example of that, of the EM tag being used inside the P or paragraph tag. So one of the words is emphasized. It produces the following, shows a screenshot of that, how it's rendered. You can also add a list of items using the LI tag as shown here. And it shows that in the screenshot. We can also put data in table format using the table, TH, TR, and TD tags, which are table, table header, table row, and table data. By doing that, you can get the following. And it shows a screenshot of how that is rendered on the screen. Admittedly, though, the presentation here is somewhat flat. To be less circumspect and more straightforward, it's 19 times uglier than a Tucker bag full of cast-off and rusty rejected rubbish. So, in the next step, we will concentrate on spiffying things up and infusing some pizzazz by adding CSS into the mix, and see what we can do to make the rendered result look more appealing. Until then,